The FA set to crack down on the criticism of matchday officials. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. Today's video stems from a piece in the Daily Mail, which basically states that the Daily Mail, the FA, the PGMOL are set to crack down on the criticism given to referees of all levels in future after, of course, what has been a very rough few weeks for the standard of refereeing, the VAR and the PGMOL, and of course certain managers' comments in post-match interviews regarding some of those decisions. Of course, this comes after what has been a rough few weeks for the PGMOL. Referee standards seem to be on the decline, VAR's usage seems to be shambolic and chaotic, and their response to it all has been rather laughable, to say the least, and somewhat confusing and baffling to many people. But rather than own up to the criticism, rather than own up to what has been a rough few weeks and say that we're going to look to try and improve things, they've instead doubled down. They've backed what has been given on the pitch. They've backed the decisions of their mates. And rather than, like I say, own up to maybe the reality that maybe some of those decisions were controversial and that some of those decisions they may have got wrong due to human error, they've decided to crack down on them being criticised by managers in post-match press conferences. And the overall outcome seems to be that Premier League managers have now been warned about their conduct and their choice of phrasing and words when it comes to talking about referees. We're going to be talking about this article, we're going to be talking about the campaign that the Mail are running and why this has all come about and everything else in between. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are also very greatly appreciated. And also for you guys to get involved in the comment section. I'm sure you have a lot of interesting thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it. That'll make for great and interesting reading. So do get involved down below. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. Let's talk this article and let's talk referees and this campaign to protect referees. Now, let me just say first and foremost, there is a fine line between abuse and criticism that I don't know if certain people that obviously give it online or give it on a match day in the stands or whoever, I don't know if they know what that line is. But there's nothing wrong with giving criticism. There's nothing wrong with giving criticism. It's the abuse that obviously shouldn't be warranted and should never be given. But the criticism aspect should be. Because if referees do get things wrong, they should be criticised for it. If I go to my job and I do something wrong, I get criticised for it. Same way you will. If you do something wrong in your job, you should get criticised for it. And there should be the right and correct punishment for that. That should be a given. As we've seen in previous weeks, whenever someone has made a mistake in refereeing, their punishment is to get demoted to the Championship for a game, and then the next day they get brought back into one of the biggest games of that particular Premier League weekend. That's what we've seen. That's not a punishment. That is nothing of the sort of a punishment. That is ridiculous. And even then, that same referee still made a very dodgy decision in the game that he was refereeing in the Championship and was still given the biggest Premier League game of that weekend. So that, to me, should be correct. If there is criticism to be made, as long as it's valid and as long as there is genuine evidence to support that criticism and that claim of criticism, then there should be a leg to stand on and therefore should be right to be given. Mikel Arteta had every right in that post-match press conference that he conducted, which is the main stem from, by the way. That is where this whole thing stems from, that Arteta press conference after Arsenal's controversial 1-0 defeat at the hands of Newcastle, in which he repeatedly said it was a disgrace and it was embarrassing. That's where this all stems from, by the way. Let's not get it twisted. He had every right in that press conference to go all in on that claim that it was wrong, because I would have, and a lot of other managers have done that beforehand. Let's not pretend like Mikel Arteta was the first manager to ever come out and criticise referees, because I've seen Sir Alex Ferguson do it, I've seen Jose Mourinho do it, I've seen Arsene Wenger do it, I've seen Jurgen Klopp do it, I've seen Pep Guardiola do it. I've seen numerous managers, not even at the top level, filtering down. I think even I think even the Sheffield United manager, whose name escapes me, earlier this season criticised referees and basically said that they are ruining the game. Every level, every position, managers, players, whoever it is, are not happy with the conduct of referees in certain aspects. It's not completely wrong. It's not completely their fault. But here we are, talking about it week in, week out, talking about the standard of refereeing, talking about the usage of VAR, talking about the PGMOL's response, and people like Howard Webb going on shows with like Michael Owen and talking absolute nonsense about how his referees are the best in the world, how his referees came to this decision, and how proud he is that they went to that decision and that they didn't interfere as much and that they came to the right conclusion in a quick enough time. Most of it is ridiculous. Most of it is nonsensical. Most of it is complete and utter crap. Pure and simple. The article that I'm referencing and talking about from the Mail basically states that the Mail have launched a campaign to help stamp out abusive referees from all levels of the game. Now, 100% I back that. The abuse side of things is completely wrong. The abuse side of things should never be seen within football. It should never happen. I'm 100% on the side of that. But a crackdown in criticism. We've already seen this season that they have announced that the threshold for giving yellow cards in games has been lowered. Fouling, talking to referees, even managers on the sidelines, it seems that yellow cards are just given quite freely. We've already seen stricter punishments to time wasting. We've seen stricter punishments to levels of dissent, throwing the ball away, arguing, screaming out in frustration and anger, things like that. We've already seen that things like that are becoming more apparent in the game. And the inconsistency of when referees decide to use them has been baffling to me, because I've seen players get booked for stupid things like that, but then I've seen some players do the exact same thing and not get booked for it. So the inconsistency there is still inconsistent like that they put those rules in themselves. It's baffling to me. And now they seem to be cracking down on it even more by the way that they want the post-match comments of managers to be analysed and talked about. And if there is any sort of criticism, they are going to face stricter punishments, which they claim will be heftier and larger fines, as well as the potential of touchline bans. Utter, ridiculous nonsense. If there is a game in which a referee has a solid enough game, nothing major really to report on, pretty dull game to be honest, in which no major decisions had to be made, or the referee got it spot on, fair enough. But if a referee does something wrong, you can't criticise it. You can't say, I think he got that wrong. I'm not quite sure how they got to that conclusion with obviously VAR's interference as well as the on-field referee. You can't criticise it, because then you get risk of this. You get risk of these kinds of things happening. And it's not just the Premier League, but the Championship have also been involved. The English Football League, they've been involved. And I'm sure other levels going further down have also been involved and are also trying to crack down on this as well. But you can't talk about it in these kinds of situations. It's mind-boggling to me. Because if you can't criticise, how is the improvement of the level of officiating going to improve? How is the level of officiating going to improve if you can't criticise? Because otherwise, referees are going to go through and go, I made this decision, I made that decision, I got it all right. Even though the teams were angry about it, I still got it right. They're going to get banned by the FA. They're going to get fined by the FA for criticising me. I'm going to go on to the next match, and it's going to be a huge game between two title contenders. It's going to be a huge game between two teams battling it out for the Champions League place. It's going to be between two teams that are relegation candidates, and I'm just going to just pick and choose what I decide to do, how I decide to do it, and how I decide to implement the rules of the overall organisation that I work for. I'm going to pick and choose, and at the end of the day, nothing's going to happen to me, because the worst case scenario is I make a bad enough decision that sees me get relegated to the Championship for a day, and then I'm back in the Premier League in the big time the next. Explain to me how any of this seems fair. I get the abuse, but there was nothing in Mikel Arteta's speech after the Newcastle game that suggested any level of abuse, any level of chaos, disarray. He just basically criticised the referee and the VAR's performance on that day to arrive at that specific incident. That's all he did. He didn't bring into disrepute, he didn't abuse anyone, he didn't threaten anyone. It was just criticism that the FA, that the PGMOL, that the referee on the day, the VAR on the day, anybody watching that should have just gone, I understand what he's saying there. I understand why he was angry. I understand that if it was the other way around, I'm sure Eddie Howe would have been feeling the same way, or any other manager in that position. Arteta was just the wrong guy, wrong place, wrong time, whatever the case may be. I understand that. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to see if we can further improve upon it. Instead, what they did was they doubled down on it. They claimed that the referee on the day gave the right decision and the VAR didn't overrule him, which was the right call. And Howard Webb went on a show with Michael Owen, the most passive presenter I've ever seen in my life. And he basically gave this absolute waffle of a description and a waffle of an explanation as to why they arrived at the decision that they did. And Owen sat there and went, yes, Mr. Webb. Yeah, no, Mr. Webb. 3 bags full, Mr. Webb. An utter joke, in my opinion. I agree, once again, with the abuse side of things. I just don't agree with the way that they're implementing these rules. They're inconsistent with some of them that they've implemented this season. They're inconsistent with how strict they've implemented them this season. And when it comes to the criticism of referees, you can't now seemingly go out and criticise them if you have a valid point, if you have valid evidence with a leg to stand on. And if that is the case, managers shouldn't be giving post-match interviews. They shouldn't. If that's the case, they shouldn't. If referees can't, and referees can't make the decisions themselves and can't justify the decisions themselves without having their mouthpiece, Howard Webb, go on a show with Michael Owen. I still can't believe Michael Owen's got a show. Baffling to me. The most boring human being on the planet gets his own show in which he basically has to just, just look at Howard Webb like he adores him and go, yes, Mr. Webb. I agree with you, Mr. Webb. If they can't justify it after a game, why should managers justify their responses after a game? I don't understand why that is. I don't understand why they get away with it so much. And I feel like it's giving more power to referees and match officials with these kind of rule sets. Like I say, abuse has no place within the game, but there is a fine line between criticism and abuse that I don't think many people giving the abuse or many people taking the criticism understand. And that's where I think they should understand it. They should draw a line, because criticism is not the same as abuse. The same way abuse is not the same as criticism. And you can call out a decision as criticism and you can say that they need to improve. But if they see it as abuse, you're going to get in trouble for it. And that's where I think managers are going to be seen as being fined more. I see managers being given more harsher and more stricter punishments for. And I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better. And that's why I call for managers to just not give post-match interviews anymore, because that's what they seemingly want. They seemingly want to create, and I've said it time and time again, this reality TV of drama and bust-ups and all kinds of anger and frustration to generate more eyes on the product, to generate more clicks and more views on social media and things like that, to create this reality TV drama BS that is ridiculous. So yeah, this kind of annoyed me a little bit. I agree with half of it, but the other half definitely not, and definitely needs to be looked at, and definitely they need to grow up and be like, I accept criticism, not abuse. But those are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of the FA cracking down on Premier League managers for the criticism and so-called abuse of referees from each and every single level of the game that we know and love? I'd love to know your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, on this particular topic down below in the comments section. I'm sure it'll make for interesting and great reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. Both things are always and forever greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I will see you and speak to you all again soon in the video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for stopping by. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.